disturbing story is developing behind bars tonight at Attica. 2 inmates are dead. A third is in the hospital.
Officers sent to the hospital after more than 20 inmates started fighting at Auburn Correctional Facility.
Report shows inmates Richard Matt and David Sweat were able to escape from the Clinton Correctional Facility because the prison system wasn't following its own rules. The 4 top failures of the DOC, according to the Inspector General, point to problems with security, improper training, staff laziness, and cover-ups from inside the facility.
This is the 5 most dangerous and most notorious prisons in the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. Tune in, y'all. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Grow With Me, Sawyer P, where we grow together, not apart. And as you can see today, we're going to be touching on a pretty interesting topic. The New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, top 5 most dangerous prisons or most notorious prisons in the state. And we'll talk a little bit about why each facility earned that reputation. And before starting the video, I don't want to give any type of glorification to the prison system or glorify anything about having to serve time. Anyone that sometimes on TV or in music, people can kind of glorify prison, and while it definitely has its place in society, there are people that do horrible things that deserve to be there and probably need to be there for the safety of the community. It's not a place you want to go if you can avoid it. Some of us, like myself, had to learn the hard way. As you all know, I served a 2.5-year sentence and a 1 to 3 year sentence in the New York State prison system, and I've been through several facilities. All the facilities in this video, with the exception of one, I've at least passed through in transit while in the draft, moving from facility to facility where we drop off and pick up inmates. I've at least been behind their wall while we were picking up and dropping off guys. All these facilities are maximum security prisons. While there are some wild medium security prisons as well that kind of get jumping, the ones that are really serious and give off that aura of seriousness and business, are the maxes. There are a few mediums, and maybe at some point I'll talk about that. But just off the top of the head, Green Correctional Facility comes to mind. Anyone that knows anything about New York State Prison, the mediums, knows that Green has that gladiator school reputation. But so. With that, I don't want to glorify any of this, try not to go there. But we'll start off with number 5. Number 5 is Sing Sing Correctional Facility, which is located in Austining, New York. Sing Sing Correctional Facility, formerly Austining Correctional Facility, is a maximum security prison operated by the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision in the village of Austining, New York. It is about 30 miles north of New York City on the east bank of the Hudson River. Excuse me. It holds about 1,700 inmates and housed the execution chamber for the state of New York until its abolition of capital punishment in New York in 2004. So in 2004, they put up a death penalty, what they call moratorium. And this, where I extracted my information from, the source I got mine from, it says abolished, but the word for it's a moratorium, which oftentimes a moratorium is kind of like a temporary pause. I think at that time, don't quote me on this, in 2004, it might have been Giuliani was the, was it Rudolph Giuliani, or was he the mayor of New York City? I think it was Giuliani that was the governor of New York State. Don't quote me on that. Maybe I can look that up and put it on the video. But you can always just do a quick Google search and find out. But I guess it's not that important. But anyways, a moratorium was put on the death penalty. You know, some people feel that, you know, the death penalty is, you know, cruel and unusual punishment, you know, especially where guys have appeals going. So oftentimes they sit for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years waiting to get executed, going through the appeal process, you know. If it gets denied on the state level, then, you know, the Supreme Court level, then it goes to the appellate Supreme Court. Then if it gets denied there, it can go through like 7 or 8 different levels of federal court. You know, there's like district court, then like a regional court, and then a United States appeal court. I think that's like the final one, you know. Or the very final one is the governor can commute your sentence right before. Sometimes they'll have the phone right there as they're about to execute someone, and the governor might call within 5 minutes of them electrocuting or pushing that plunger on the, you know, the injection they use to put people down to kill them, you know, kill them like a dog. Well, I'm not necessarily for or against the death penalty. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions, because to me, there's only one true judge, and that's God. You know what I mean? I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make those big decisions, because I wouldn't want to have to render judgment on any human being. You know, it's a very weighty responsibility. You know, that should be taken with the utmost seriousness. You know, no judge that is not level-headed and can think rationally and consider all the circumstances, in my opinion, should ever be on the bench. That should be reserved for practical thinkers, people that can look at all the facts and circumstances and come to a good conclusion. Very level-headed, sound-thinking human being, man or woman. But that's just my 2 cents on that. Okay, so why is this facility dangerous? Why does it have its reputation? Okay, so as I said, you know, it's about 30 miles north of New York City. So it has a close proximity to New York City. That's not far at all. You know, I mean, I don't know how rough the traffic is getting up there, but that's probably anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour with bad traffic to get up there at most, at worst case scenario. I guess depending on how fast you drive in traffic. But being where it has that close proximity to New York City, being where it has that close proximity to New York City, the culture of that prison, and let me interrupt that real quick. This is the only facility I never passed through. Remember earlier in the video I said I passed through all the facilities I'm going to mention? This is the only one I didn't. I wasn't in too many facilities in the downstate region of the state. You know, I was in downstate correctional facility, Ulster, and yeah, those are the 2 big ones I remember passing through down there near New York City. I may have passed through another, but those are the 2 that come offhand at the moment. But because I did pass through several in transit while I was on the draft. But so why is that proximity to New York City important? The proximity, that is an important factor because the culture of that prison is much different than the upstate regions. You know, Western New York, out near Buffalo, Rochester, you know, the Finger Lakes and Southern Tier, there's prisons all through there. But then you got the way upstate area, up above Syracuse, where like Lake Placid is, Plattsburgh, Malone, New York, Governor, all those areas up near Canada. Those prisons, you know, in the western and way up north part of the state are primarily ran by white correctional officers. Most of the staff there, be it correctional officers or like civilians that work in the kitchen or counselors or that work jobs in the school or in the trade shops, you know, most of them are white. So a lot of those facilities, you know, don't take this the wrong way. You know, this is nothing racist, but it's ran, I feel a bit more rigid and a lot of, you know, distrust and treating inmates badly. You know what I mean? You know, a lot of inmates are treated poorly. I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, that happens in the lower levels, you know, down near the city too. But the culture's different. It doesn't have much of a culture. It's kind of a more dry, you know, and the staff are just, a lot of them are fat, washed up, and mean alcoholics that probably look like they beat their wives, you know. The ones that are in shape and big look like they take tons of steroids. Probably played football in high school and hunt deer and inject steroids in their butt cheek every week. But the difference in Sing Sing, being where it has that close proximity to New York City, New York City is a huge hub in the United States, obviously, for drugs. So there's a lot of contraband in Sing Sing. It is a mix. Of course, in any facility there's going to be a lot of gangs, but there are a lot of corrupt staff there. Most of the staff there are black. I know tons of guys that have done time in that facility, or friends or close to or spoke to when I was doing my time. And I've spoke to several people that have done time there, and it has a reputation for you can get what you want. If you want heroin, you can get heroin. If you want cocaine, you can get cocaine. If you want weed, spice, etc., etc., etc. If you want a knife, you can get a knife. If your money's right, you can get what you want in there. Even down to prostitution. The COs, there's a lot of, Hispanic and black, and there's some white too. Like I said, do not take this in any racial way. I'm just calling it how it is. This is facts. You can do the research yourself or talk to someone who's been there. There's a lot more Hispanic and black COs that grew up in some of those hood areas, and some of them are kind of hood themselves. They carry themselves. They got that New York City swag. I was gonna try to imitate that kind of accent, but I'm not the best at it. But get in the car, they kind of talk like that and everything. But not to talk smack about New York people, but they got that strong accent and that Brooklyn and Manhattan, Harlem type swag. You know what I mean? Every borough kind of has its own swag, if you want to call it that. But if your money's right, nowadays with the growing of things like Cashapp and Venmo and stuff, they're probably Cash Apping these COs money. And from my understanding, if you want to have sex with a female there, a guard, it's probably going to start at a minimum of $500. Some of those COs are good looking too. They got big old booties. They curvy and shapely. I mean, we all know the black girls got the badonkadonk, by nature, man. They just built like that. A lot of them, anyways. But a lot of Hispanic girls too. I mean, there's white girls too. All of them do, but we know the black girls. They're notorious for that. It's kind of the thing. But anyways, if your money's right, it's not going to be cheap, but you can get anything you want. And any place where there's drugs, where there's prostitution, there's going to be power controls. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be debts. People that aren't paying up their drug debts, that are getting strung out on these drugs. Like I said in my other video, K2 and Suboxone are the two big ones, but that facility probably has anything and everything you can think of. Fentanyl, heroin, coke, crack, whatever. I'm sure probably even meth these days are in there. But, you don't pay your debts, what happens to you? Slash, bang, stab. If someone's got the bag and they're not strong and they can't defend themselves, what's going to happen to them? Someone's going to sneak up, choke him out. He's going to get poked up. He's going to get it taken from him. You know what I mean? You better be in a gang that's solid or be able to have a piece yourself, a knife, to be able to defend what you have. A lot of the time people get caught up, they do the prostitution thing, they sleep with a female CO and other guys get jealous, man. It's a max prison, so there's a lot of lifers there, and they're not getting none. And a lot of people hate on someone else when someone else has something or is doing something that they want to do that they can't. So what do? They drop slips. They tell the police. All these things cause drama. If that person gets found out that they told, he's going to get beat up, he's going to get cut, he's going to get stabbed. So that's what leads to a lot of the violence in these facilities, in this particular facility. Of all the prisons in the state, this one has the biggest reputation for jumping off with narcotics, drugs, and pretty much whatever you want. I'm sure even cell phones these days. It used to be super hard to get stuff like that, but I'm sure if your money's right, I wouldn't be surprised if guys get them in there sometimes. New York's pretty good at keeping the cell phone games out. Other states are good at getting them in. New York's been pretty good about that, but wouldn't surprise me a bit if they're in there. So, yeah. Sing Sing is a dangerous place. And before we go to the next topic, a few notable inmates that have been there: Louis Capone and Emmanuel Weiss, which are members of Murder Inc. Both were executed in 1944. And John Roach, serial killer and rapist, executed in 1956. So if you ever have to do time in upstate New York and you have to be in the maxes, Sing Sing, while it's dangerous, I guess it just depends what your thing is. There's some smoother ones, but if you choose to be a drug addict and you want to see the wildness and all that stuff and try to get you a CO, go to Sing Sing. So, coming in number 4. We just did number 5. Coming in at number 4 is Auburn Correctional Facility. And mind you, these were kind of hard to rank. There was ones I thought about switching and moving around, because they're kind of close, but Auburn Correctional Facility, which is in Auburn, New York. Auburn Correctional Facility is a state prison on State Street in Auburn, New York, United States. It was built on land that was once a Cayuga village. It is classified as a maximum security facility, constructed in 1816 as Auburn Prison. It was the second state prison in New York after New York City's Newgate, 1797 through 1828. That's how long Newgate was open. The site of the first execution by electric chair in 1890, and the namesake of the Auburn system, a correctional system in which the prisoners were housed in solitary confinement in large rectangular buildings and performed penal labor under silence that was enforced at all times. No talking. The prison was renamed Auburn Correctional Facility in 1970. The prison is among the oldest functional prisons in the United States. It's the second oldest prison ever in New York State. Newgate was the first. But of the still standing facilities that are still there today, Newgate no longer exists from my understanding. So Auburn is the oldest that is still functioning. And, let me tell you a couple of notable inmates that were there. A couple of notable inmates was Jimmy Burke of the Lucchese crime family. If you ever read the book Wise Guy by Nicholas Pileggi, I read that while I was doing time. Jimmy Burke played a big role. Wise Guy was basically the same story as the Goodfellas movie. If you ever watched the movies Goodfellas, it's the book version of Goodfellas. Jimmy Burke of the Lucchese crime family. Leon Kuzov, the assassin of President William McKinney, electrocuted in Auburn on October 29th, 1901. This man killed the president, man. They had to take care of him, which is kind of understandable. He killed the president, that's a big deal, And William Kemmler, the first person executed in the electric chair. Wow. So, Auburn. This is one of the facilities I've been in. And Auburn is a big temporary holding facility. If you say you're going from downstate over to Attica, or from downstate up to Franklin, or somewhere upstate far, Governor, or one of those prisons up there somewhere, a lot of the time, New York State's pretty big. To get from one side of the state to get to New York State to Western New York, it's about a 6-hour drive. And to get from New York State to the top of the state up near Plattsburgh and all that region up there, that's about a 6-hour ride as well, but it's going north rather than west. So New York State's pretty big, and whenever they're running the draft, they're stopping in different facilities all along the way, dropping off, picking up guys, and so forth, So a lot of the time, when you think it would just be a straight shot to wherever you're going, you'll be sitting there 5 hours. It's an all-day ordeal. You might not get there until nighttime sometimes, where it's sunsetting. And a lot of the time, when they're doing a busy draft, and depending on where you're going to, from what part of the state, in this instance for me, I was in Cayuga, and I had an open court case in Niagara County. So anytime I had to go to Niagara County 2 or 3 times from Cayuga, I had to pack up a mini court bag where I can only have a certain amount of possessions, that went my property under the bus. There's a kind of like on the Greyhounds, an area where they store your draft property bags. But I couldn't bring all my commissary with me, just a few things. But anyways, when going from Cayuga to Orleans, while that's only probably a 2-hour bus ride, they would take us northeast to Auburn. We would stay the night there. God forbid you go on a Friday, you're going to sit there all weekend, which is horrible. I never had to do that, fortunately. But it's a 2-man cell, and they're tiny. They're so small. These are like some of the smallest cells I've ever been in New York State. Probably the smallest, especially for a 2-man cell. Very, very tiny. And I met some pretty interesting dudes. Yeah, I was in a cell with a blood guy that was like, he had some rank in his gang, but really cool dude. He told me some very violent, wild stories. He had been in population in Auburn, actually. But anyways, that's a transit facility, holding place. When you're going from one facility to another. You might stay the night there, 2 nights, a weekend, whatever, before getting to your final destination. But like I was mentioning before, this particular facility had the Auburn system, which back in the day, hard manual labor was forced to be done by the inmates, and they could not talk. If you got caught talking to your neighbor or your cellie, unless given some type of explicit permission to do so or asked a question, they were beaten, they were whipped, they were hurt severely, badly. Some guys, have died from severe floggings, and they realized this system didn't work because a lot of guys were losing their mind. They were going insane. They were going crazy. And I don't know if you guys believe in stuff like in things like ghosts, but I mean that so many people have died in there. It's a very violent facility. It has a big reputation now. The guys I know that were there in population told me that the yard, where some facility have like separate buildings, go to separate yards, and say you're on A block and there's a guy on E block that you got beef with. Say you and him were in a different facility before and got in a huge fight and pulled out knives and you cut the dude or he cut you. Normally, if you're in the same facility, they put a keep away on that guy and they make sure you never come in contact with him. Sometimes the way a lot of prisons are, they're set up in such a way that you will never, even though you are behind that wall or fence with them, you'll never see them, But Auburn is set up in such a way that if you got beef with someone, there was an intersecting hallway and the yard, everyone had to go, you had to, I believe, even pass through the yard to get to a lot of different parts of the prison. I'd say, for instance, medical. I'm not sure about the mess hall. I haven't been through that area, but from what it was explained to me, there's crossroads that you have to pass through. Every unit in the whole facility has to go through, unless you're on lockdown. So if you got beef with someone, it's a matter of time you will eventually see them. Going to the mess hall, unless you never ever come out of your you're going to eventually see them. And even still, you're in a max. A lot of those guys in maxes are doing serious amounts of time or life. You're bound to run into them at some point in time, which, that you can't hide out in there. You can't hide, and even if you got to keep away or, from somebody, a lot of times COs don't care, man. You hear stories of guys getting beat up. When I was in there on the draft, I seen guys in handcuffs get slammed to the floor by COs, shoved, smacked, disrespected. There's actually a story in the news where a CO used his baton and violated a dude's ANUS with the stick. I'm just kind of spelling that out because I don't know, if I should be saying that out loud on YouTube. But, the COs are, pretty bad. They're pretty bad themselves and encourage that violent atmosphere themselves. So that's Auburn. Coming in at number 3 is Clinton Correctional Facility. I considered heavily putting this in at number 2. I almost did, but it's kind of 2 and 3 are kind of neck and neck. So let me give you the rundown of Clinton. Clinton Correctional Facility is is located in Dannemora, New York. Clinton Correctional Facility is a New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision maximum security state prison for men located in the village of Dannemora, New York. The prison is sometimes colloquially referred to as Dannemora, having once served as a massive insane asylum named Dannemora State Hospital for the criminally insane, although it's derived from its location in Clinton County, New York. And a few notable inmates that went there was the rapper Shine. He sang the song More or Less, Bad Boys. I like Shine a lot. He raps like this, you know. He's got a real deep voice. Yo, what's up? I'm Shine Poe, yo. You know, he's got a great voice for rapping. But he ended up getting deported to Belize. He's originally from Belize, which is in South America or Central America. I believe it's Central America. He got deported. He did, I think it was a 10-year sentence. He was with P. Diddy, actually. And if I remember correctly, they were at a club, and he pulled out a gun and shot, and a woman got hit, and P. Diddy got charged initially too, but he had a good lawyer and got off somehow, and Shine kind of took the rap for the gun, for the reckless shooting in a building and all that stuff, and had 10 years. Rapper Tupac Shakur. How do you want it? How do you feel? Growing up in the trash can, living in the fast lane, I'm free. How do you want it? Sorry, I had to do that. But we all know who Tupac is, the legendary artist. He was an inspiration to so many rappers and people, and just the way he spoke, and he can move people, man, with his words, move people to action, and very inspirational dude, man. And while he was wild and didn't make the best decisions, he served some time there. I believe he was actually accused of a rape, which a lot of people don't think he did it. You know, when a lot of people that are famous, they got money. People are trying to get money. They're trying to get a lawsuit, you know. So I don't know. You know, the man was rich and famous. I'm sure he could have got almost any girl he wanted. I don't know why he would have to rape a girl, but he went down for it, and I believe he did about 5 years. You might want to look that up yourself, but he was positively there. Cop killer Ralph Bucky Phillips. He escaped from Erie County Jail, or I believe it's called Erie County Correctional Facility. It's right outside of Buffalo, New York. It's actually next to Wendy, which is in Alden, New York. If I remember correctly, he used a can opener from the kitchen. If I remember right, he worked as a kitchen trustee, and he used a can opener to cut open like part of the ceiling and get through. Don't quote me on this. You might want to research that. But he definitely escaped, I believe, through the roof and got out through the roof, and he escaped. He was on the run for quite some time, actually. I believe like 2-ish months. And he ran all up and down Western New York through the southern tier, down around Cattaraugus and Chautauqua County. It was even believed that he went down into Pennsylvania for a little while as well. But during that time, at one point, a state trooper, they were tipped off to where he was at, and he was in a wooded area. Bucky Phillips, as they call him, Ralph Bucky Phillips. They had him in a wooded area, and it was a foot pursuit, and Bucky was able to get ahead of him and set down, and he shot the cop. It was a state trooper. Shot him in the leg, though. I don't think he was initially trying to kill the man, but just slow him down. But the spot he hit him in one of those major arteries. I believe it was the femoral artery. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of that artery. And he bled out, man. It killed him. And he's doing life without parole. He'll never, ever get a chance. And he was on the road for some time. And before he shot that cop, he was kind of like a folk legend in the area, man. A lot of people were like, go Bucky, keep running. Like, people thought it was cool because he was like almost like a Robin Hood type figure, you know what I mean? Like, although he broke the law, he was like legendary, you know? It was all over the news in Buffalo and Western New York, all over the country, but especially around Buffalo, Niagara Falls area. He's there. He was there for a long time. You probably have to look him up. I'm not sure if he's still currently there, but he's never getting out, you know? But And I want to mention two more other. This one had some very interesting people that did time there. Clinton's notorious for that. Apparently, Clinton has, and I want to mention this, I believe it's called IPC, Involuntary Protective Custody. A lot of high-profile guys that are maximum security level go to Clinton. From mafia guys to these rappers and so on and so forth. They have an area for, you're forced into PC. Whether you like it or not, the police make you go there because someone with a lot of money can influence the inmates to cause an uprising and riot against the state. Someone with a lot of pull and leadership like that, can make things happen. They got money. They can bribe guards. They can, who knows, man? They got enough money and influence. They might get a helicopter lowered into the yard. I mean, you never know, man. People with power like that and money. But it has an IPC there, so that's why a lot of these high-profile guys go there. And it's known for that. Clinton is known for that. And there's two other ones I want to mention. Richard Matt and David Sweat. And I got a little information here. Some of the highly known events that Clinton's known for. So Richard Matt and David Sweat they escaped from Clinton in 2015. So here's the little spiel on that. On June 6, 2015, inmates Richard Matt and David Sweat, both serving sentences for murder, escaped from the facility. Two prison employees, Joyce Mitchell and Gene Palmer, were charged with aiding the escape. During the search on June 26th, Matt was shot and killed by a Border Patrol agent in the town of Malone, New York. 2 days later, Sweat was shot by New York State Trooper Jay Cook and subsequently captured. In the 2 days after the escape, some prisoners reported having been beaten by guards in an attempt to obtain information as to the whereabouts and the plans of the escaped inmates. And you will not believe how these guys got out. Apparently they had saw blades and different hand tools snuck in through a lot of the staff there. If you were cool with the staff member, or you could pay them, or sometimes there are little things you could do for the guard, to make his life a little easier. Or some people would just kiss butt, And the guards, they would bring in like deli meat, like say ground beef or steak. And oftentimes they don't get searched when they come in. They got a little lunch bag and they can bring in a freaking pound of weed if they want, or heroin, whatever, And apparently between the hamburger meat, there were saw blades and various tools that were snuck in that they needed. And they cut holes in the back wall of their cell. Now, it's almost like some Shawshank Redemption stuff. Like if you ever seen that movie Shawshank, cut a hole through the wall. At nighttime, snuck down through all the pipes. There was a lot of pipe fixings and that run to cells, toilets and stuff like that. And sewage pipes and stuff went way under the facility. And they had, I believe, cut through one large pipe, and squeezed their way through that. And they came out through a manhole in the street out front of the facility's wall. It actually came out to the street. They're in the facility. They go down. They navigate through this tunnel and this big pipe, and come up through a manhole. The little circle things in the street, the metal things. Where they go down to deal with sewage and stuff. Pushed it up, and boom, they got out. That Joyce Mitchell, they were both kind of having an affair with her. She did sexual favors for both of them while they were in there, and they manipulated her and tricked her into being in love with them. And she was supposed to pick them up, I believe, around like midnight or 1 a.m., and they were going to flee to Mexico together and all be happily in love and live happily ever after. But she didn't show up. So these guys, they kind of had to, they were on the lam going through wilderness and, breaking into hunting cabins and stuff like that. They stole a shotgun. Richard Matt, actually, he had a shotgun with him when the cops pulled up on him, and that's why they didn't even hesitate. He's a convicted killer. They didn't even mess with him. They shot him straight through his skull and killed him. They seen that gun? Boom! Fired his head off, man. But the other one, David Sweat, he tried running from him, and they shot him, I think, like in the shoulder. They're just trying to stop him. Like, once you're outside that wall and you're a convicted killer, they don't have to warn you. Like if they tell you to stop and you don't stop and you run, they're shooting you. You're getting shot. Period. If you're an escaped murderer, and maybe even non-murderers, don't quote me on this. I don't know if it's only for like certain people, but once you're outside that wall, you don't have the right to be outside that wall because you're a convicted criminal. So you have no right to be out there, and they will shoot you and end your life potentially if you escape from a prison. So, this facility is also known. There's a rumor that allegedly there's dead bodies buried underneath the basketball court there. That's a big rumor within the prison system in New York. Anyone that's done time that knows about Clinton has probably heard that before, that a lot of inmates a lot of COs killed inmates, and they would hide their bodies under the gym floor. That's a big ongoing rumor. Sounds a little off to me, the under the floor thing, but definitely people have been killed by COs there, and inmate-on-inmate violence is rampant there. Very violent facility, lots of drugs. That whole hub, the whole Clinton hub, that for some reason, that particular hub is a massive drug hub in the state prison system. Of all the hubs I've done time in, that one was flooded with narcotics. You would think the ones down near New York City, which those probably are too. I didn't do as much time down there, but, there's other areas that are closer to New York City where I did time, and they weren't near as bad. That facility up there was just absolutely just tons of narcotics. Those facilities, man, and all of them. Franklin, Bear Hill, Clinton, all the ones in that hub are flooded with narcotics. So we all know what comes with that, So that was number 3. Number 2 is Great Meadow Correctional Facility, also known as Comstock, the stock. Inmates, which is in Comstock, New York. A lot of inmates refer to it as Comstock. When you hear people talk about it, no one calls it Great Meadow, very rarely. Unless you need to tell someone specifically where you're at on the phone or something, and they need to know the address and all that. But everyone, when they talk about Great Meadow, they say Comstock. That's its name. That's what it's called, That's its, AKA, but everyone calls it that. Great Meadow Correctional Facility is a maximum security prison in New York State in the United States. The prison is in Comstock, a hamlet right outside the village of Fort Anne in Washington County, New York. As of September 3rd, 2008, it was home to 1,663 inmates. When Great Meadow opened in 1911, it was the 4th prison for adult males constructed in the state of New York. So it's a very old facility as well. This one, I would say it doesn't have as interesting stories like I spoke on with Clinton and Auburn and what was the 5th? Sing Sing. However, it's a facility, as soon as you get there, you want to get a knife. It has a very dark vibe. Everyone I know, I've passed through there as well in transit, and just as soon as you go behind the wall, there's a gigantic wall going around it. As soon as you get behind that wall, you can feel the dark atmosphere. It just feels like a nasty place. Just the aura coming off the prison, You see a couple COs, they all look mean. And St. Laz, st.laz, he's got a YouTube channel. He has a few stories about Comstock, and I would suggest watching him. There's a CO there, man, that there's a particular CO, he's got a black baby with a noose around its neck. He's a racist dude, hanging a black baby. And he beat inmates half to death. St. Laz talks about a story where there was a gay black inmate, and when they came in on the draft, the CO was humiliating him, calling him Faggot, and slamming him against the wall and being very physically rough with him, humiliating him in front of everyone. He's like, "You're not going to be doing that gay stuff in my prison, that Faggot stuff in my prison, are you? You better not, and it's a ruthless spot. people. It's, it's very close to number one. It is, just has a very dark atmosphere to it. Very, very dark, Not just from what I felt, but everyone I know that's been there just talk about it, So I'll just mention a few first I'll talk about a few notable inmates. You got Lucky Luciano, which was a New York City crime boss. He's a big name in the mafia. I believe Lucky Luciano was in the Wise Guys book and Goodfellas 2. I think he was, but he played a huge role in the mafia scene back in like the 70s, 80s. He did time there. Colin Ferguson, which was a mass murderer, serving a de facto life sentence of 385 years and 8 months in prison for the 1993 Long Island Railroad shooting. So he shot and killed multiple people on the Long Island Railroad. He got 385 years for it. The rapper Hell Rell of Dipset. If you know who the Diplomats are, they were probably biggest around 2000, 99 through 2004, 05-ish. They were kind of doing their thing. Hell Rell, Cameron, Jules Santana. There's a few others, but they were real, they're a New York City gang. And Hell Rell was one of the members of them, and he did time there. And he actually has a video on YouTube. If you type in Hell Rell Dipset at Comstock, there's a video of him where he's outside in the parking lot saying he just got off the dance floor, which is the nickname for the visiting room, and talking about how he did time there. It's real short. It's only like a 2-minute video or something, but he did time there. A few major incidents. August 17, 1955, 75 inmates armed with bats and clubs refused to move from the yard. The warden gave them 5 minutes and then authorized the police to forcibly return them to the cells. May 1976, a fight broke out between two Muslim groups. They armed themselves with baseball bats and chunks of wood. A warning shot was fired and the guards used tear gas to break the fight up. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll just name those two for now, but it's notorious. People get killed there constantly, and the funny thing is, the Department of Correction are so good at hiding and concealing this stuff. People die in these facilities all the time, and you'll never hear about it out here. You'll never hear about it, because guess what? It makes the DOC look bad, and that can cause lawsuits, and it makes the state look like they don't know what they're doing. But, I've done time with guys that seen guys get slaughtered in there right in front of them. And it's that place is about its business, man. It's not a place you want to be in. It's a place you're going to have to watch your back and be on point and very stern and not play, if you do your time there. So that was number 2. Coming in. Number 1. Number one. You guessed it. You probably thought of it at the beginning of the video. Of course, Attica Correctional Facility. Attica Correctional Facility, located in Attica, New York. Attica Correctional Facility is a maximum security campus, New York State prison in the town of Attica, New York. Operated by the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. Ooh, excuse me, y'all. It was constructed in the 1930s in response to earlier riots within the New York State prisons. So this kind of became more of a prison for guys that caused a lot of other trouble in other prisons. So this is supposed to be a very secure spot. If they built it in response to riots that happened in other prisons, this is, it sounds like a trouble type prison. So I'll touch a little bit more about that. Attica was the site of a prison uprising in September 1971 in which inmates took control of the prison for several days. They were seeking to negotiate to improve conditions and treatment at the overcrowded prison. The state's suppression of the uprising, listen to this is horrible. The state's suppression of the uprising resulted in 43 deaths, of which law enforcement gunfire killed 9 hostage correctional officers. They killed 9 of their own, and civilian employees, and 30 prisoners. Only one guard died from injuries sustained by inmates in the first day of the uprising. 3 inmates were killed by other prisoners the day law enforcement retook control of the prison. So what ended up happening when this happened, this was before I was born, but anyone born in the 71 or prior to that, you'd hear a lot of people saying Attica, Attica. They used to do like rally, like peace rally, peace protests around Vietnam time and all that. And it was big to hear people say Attica, Attica, because these inmates, the uprising was because of the poor conditions of the prison and foul, horrible treatment. They were treated way worse than they are now back then, by the staff, but also, the inmate-on-inmate violence and so forth. But the way they suppressed and retook control of this prison, at this point, pretty much the whole facility, or at least darn near most of the facility, was in the yard. They have a huge yard, and they had these dying hostages, and there's helicopters flying around. I believe at this point, state troopers had lined the top of the prison buildings, and they could have, they had guns and stuff. Well, they said heck with it. The governor gave them authority to take back the prison using as much power as they needed and authorized them to just freely shoot. And that's what they did. They just ta 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 ta. A lot of this was from the helicopter. You might want to research this yourself. The guards around the tops of the buildings fired in, just boom, like fish in a barrel. Pop, 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 pop. Not even care. And the crazy thing is, they could have took the time. These guns have scopes. You can tell they know their own. You can see the face of an employee and know, hey, that's Officer Johnson, or that's Officer Davison or something. You know what I mean? They could identify them, and I know some of them probably were stripped of their CO clothes down to their white tee, or they might have even been shirtless, but some of them still had their uniform on. They had taken some beatings and stuff, but they when they retook back the control of the prison, it was horrible, man. They just shot and fired relentlessly. And while, the prison did need to be, it needed to go back under security and need to be ran back properly and smoothly again, to me it was awful, the way they handled that. I feel like there could have been a way better way to handle that situation, to just shoot and recklessly kill, just imagine, man, that's someone's dad, that's someone's uncle, and even the inmates, man, some of those inmates, they might have been forced by the other guys to come out, hey, listen, if you don't get involved in this, we're going to get you, we're going to kill you. If you don't join us, you're against us, that's a big thing when those riots pop off. If you're not with us, you're against us. So a lot of guys, they were probably just out there just like, yeah, yeah, riot, but they didn't want to because they knew it was going to end badly, And some of you might think they're cowards, but what do you expect? You're not going to get out of there. You're not going to win. That's an uphill battle. You're never going to win, They'll call in the army if they need to, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to win. They'll call in the National Guard, whoever they need to get control of that facility, But, it's unfortunate all those lives were lost. So there's pretty notable. And another thing, too, about this facility, of all, I talk a lot about COs being violent and so forth at other facilities. This particular facility has the worst reputation in the state for inmates being killed by staff, guys being put in handcuffs, kicked down staircases, beaten to death, horrible things happening to them, horrible, allowing other inmates to harm a guy and authorizing it or encouraging it, the staff, the COs encouraging other inmates to harm each other. And this is also a max disciplinary, so say you were at Eastern, which is a more laid-back, comfortable, cushy type max, where a lot of it's almost like a honor dorm, have honor dorms and honor blocks. It's more like an honor facility. A lot of people call that like a sweet spot if you're doing time in the max, because there's a lot of privileges and good movement there and stuff like that. you go to, say, a place like Eastern or a more chill max, which none of the maxes are exactly chill, but some are much better than others, and you screw up there, you're going to go over to Attica. You screw up, a lot of those guys get sent to Attica. Like I said here, the information I have, that it was built in response to riots at other prisons, and to this day, it's used as a disciplinary maximum security prison, and it is a tightly ran shit. So some notable inmates: New York State serial killer David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam. Ooh. This man was spoken to by his dog, and his dog, it's claimed that his dog had a demon within it that told him to go out and kill people. Or it was his neighbor's dog, would that be outside barking? And Dave Berkowitz was like, oh, go kill Joe? Okay, all right, I'm going to go kill Joe. Like, this man was crazy. I believe he's I think he's in Greenhaven now. These guys get shipped around all the time, but he might still be there. But he did a huge percentage of his time, David Berkowitz in Attica, might still be there. Mark David Chapman, murderer of John Lennon of the Beatles. We all live in a yellow submarine, where all you need is love. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. All you need is love. Love is all you need. Mark David Chapman killed one of the members of that band in New York City. A very famous guy, and this happened way back. He's been down for a long time, and he'll probably never get out because, John Lennon was such a high-profile, highly liked person in the world, not just in the United States, in the world, highly loved. He's been hit at the parole board so many times, And this happened, I believe, in the 70s. Mobster Joseph Mad Dog Solon, another big name mobster. Back when the mob times were huge, 70s, early 80s, probably the 60s, some too, even 50s, going that far back, but I think it was more in the 70s. And mobster Joe Gallo of the Colombo crime family. But there's been a lot of big names that went through Attica as well. It's kind of like Clinton. They sent a lot of big name guys there, to Attica as well. But this facility, it takes the cake. It's got a lot of demons there, so to speak, and maybe even for real have demons there. There's been tons of violence. In the yard, there's parts of concrete where you can still see where bullets, and parts of the building where bullets ricocheted off the building by the cops shooting at the building. There's still to this day spots where you can see the bullets hit impact. Still to this day in 2023. So it's a horrible place, And with that, y'all, this is a super long video. I need to wrap this up. I hope that was informative and y'all enjoyed it and gave y'all a good breakdown of all. I spent about 10 minutes on each 52-minute long video, about 10 minutes on each prison. So I hope that gave you guys a good understanding. Don't commit crimes. This is not to glorify prison. Don't go to prison. It's a horrible place. Bad things happen there. You could lose your life and then end up in a place like one of these. No matter which state you're in, every state's got bad prisons. And it's not somewhere you want to be, guys. So stay free. Your takeaway from this video is to be a good person. Show love to your fellow man. And do something good, man. Make something of your life. Leave a good legacy to your kids. Be remembered for the good you did in life, not all the bad you did. While we all make mistakes, try to turn that around and do right, because I used to live not a good life, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've changed. I own a small business now, and I'm able to live a little bit. I'm not rich or anything, but, I changed my life, and anyone can do it. It's a lot of work, but you can do it, and I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a great night and enjoy this video. And if you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share, comment. Please like, because likes really help with the algorithm. I love you guys so much. Take care.